jesses. A lot of falconers and programmers that use birds of prey ambassadors will utilize this system of equipment to safely hold them on a glove. Good boy. Look at you. One wing at a time. I was nice and happy on my tree. Everybody meet Sunshine. This is one of our great horned owls. In fact, it is a he. Mr. Sunshine here is actually originally from Texas. And his story is a very charming one. He is a lot more used to close quarter handling than most even more easy to handle owls like a barred owl. This fellow was hit at a very young age by a car on the highway down in Middle Texas. And a young family with a daughter, they stopped by and they picked up this poor guy off the side of the road and found that both wings had been injured, one being completely shattered. And they took him to a nearby vet who also deemed that he had a little bit of brain damage and had lost his sight completely. A grim look for Sunshine. But thankfully, the vet did some work and found that the wing that was broken could be salvaged. The other one only had bruises. Thankfully, one wing was good. Over time, with the right care, the wing that was shattered healed. The bones corrected, but not normal. A bone of a bird of prey, or any bird for that matter, is hollow. And because of that, their bones have a harder time healing than that of a mammal. So when we think of our larger, heavier bones, theirs are light, almost honeycombed inside to allow them to get up in the air and fly. But when one breaks, especially at a joint, just like us, a joint takes a lot longer to heal than a long bone injury. And his was approximately where the wrist is on a human limb. So it still has a lot of muscle damage, and the bones healed back crooked. So he holds his wing out a little differently. In fact, right here, you'll notice he holds his injured wing, his left wing, lower than the right. It droops. And that's just where the bones do not meet up normally. So because of that, this gentleman has a hard time flying. In fact, his cage, if you do get to go out and see the aviary afterwards, you'll notice his habitat is a little bit more ADA accessible for an owl. We have several tree branches from locusts that give him a chance to walk around without having to depend on his wings. And he hops from limb to limb in there. But you can see this guy is no slouch. He's quite a big owl, and if you can see his feet here, they're no laughing matter, are they? No. Just like a stealth bomber, this guy is equipped with several tools to take care of the jobs he has to do. His wings have the power of stealth. What gives him that? Just looking at him. Yes?
The feathers.
They're feathers. What do you notice about his feathers? Do they look fluffy?
Yeah.
They're very fluffy, making him very soft to the touch. But what would a soft feather versus a rigid, stiff feather give you the advantage of? Think of any object hitting another object. If it's rigid, it's going to make a sound. If it's soft and fluffy, it'll be muffled. So what do you think that will give you? Stealth of flight. That softer feather, when the wind approaches and hits along the edge of the feather, it muffles through and the wind is actually broken up. The energy is efficient, giving him better flight, and the sound is broken, allowing very little noise made as he approaches his dinner. In fact, most prey items do not know they've been hit until after the fact. This guy here, his strength is another thing going. Like I said, he is the heaviest of our North American owls, and that weight advantage just gives him a little bit more power on the strike with his talons. Oftentimes, a great horned owl on approach will oust his landing gear, and he'll have 4 talons with one looking like a human thumb. And that back thumb talon is what we call the kill talon. He will reach down, still in flight, and grab while simultaneously squeezing those talons to his prey. Oftentimes he'll aim for the spine of a small mammal or another bird even. In fact, this guy's even known to hunt other smaller owls. Now, how much strength do you think this guy has? So we are pretty strong. Imagine squeezing a softball as hard as you can. Now, their hands are a little smaller than our hands overall, but with the area they have, if they were to have the same size hand as us, they'd have squeeze power 8 times greater than us. They have power upwards of 800 pounds of force per square inch, enough to easily pierce through my glove if he really wanted to, and actually squeeze and damage my bones. Very strong bird of prey. But right now, I'm a little bit big for dinner, thankfully. I think all of us here are as well. But what would he eat?
Mice and rodents.
Mice and rodents, very good. That's a great menu item. Maybe a great way of getting a lot of food if there's a lot in an area, but one single mouse may not be enough. We have to feed this guy daily at least 10% of his body weight in mice, so he eats several. But what would make a good, wholesome meal a little bit bigger than mice? Rabbit. Everybody loves rabbit in the birds of prey world. It's like chickens, delicious. Squirrels. Though, I'll tell you, for birds of prey, one of the most dangerous catches you can make is a squirrel. They are very tough-skinned, and they're able to defend themselves very well. So most birds, when it's time to hunt the squirrel dinner, it's easier to grab them and throw them out of a tree than to try and actually tackle them with all your might. Very dangerous. Their bite is powerful. Never try to catch a squirrel by hand.
Do these do chickens?
If there was one available, that would certainly be an easy catch for him. So a free-range chicken out in the open in the evening would certainly be on the menu. If you do own smaller pets like chickens, rabbits, even kittens and puppies, if you do live in a wooded area in this region, make sure that you always have that in the back of your mind that if it can fit, it will be eaten. So a big Great Dane or a Weimaraner, nothing to worry about, but a little Yorkie may have a problem. Now this guy, he has one thing that he favors in the animal world. If we try to catch it, we'd be stuck. Yeah, for this guy, he doesn't have a great sense of smell. So a skunk is a wonderful meal for a great horned owl. In fact, out at night in the woods, if you smell skunk, you might want to look around you first, but then if you don't see the skunk, look up. There may be a great horned owl nearby. All right. What else do you notice about Mr. Sunshine?
It looks kind of like he has horns on his head.
Very good. So you notice those little ear tufts? That's where he gets his name, the great horned owl. Kind of looks like maybe horns or maybe even ears. What are they? What's that?
Feathers.
They are feathers. Do you think they're his ears as well?
There's navigators.
That's right, they're not. Believe it or not, his ears are very different than ours. If you were to brush all that fluffy feather aside, you find just a little bit of bird down there with some big old eyes. But if I were to look at your ears, they'd be holes in the side of the head without the flap like us. And one would be way up here on one side, and on the other, the ear would be way down. Now that's kind of strange. Why would he have different heights of holes for ears? Let's see. Want to venture a guess on this side? You know?
Because it might be above him or below him.
Yes, that's very true. Food comes from below and above. For us, food comes in a single direction. We really depend on forward sight. This guy's sight, just like us, is a little bit more defined for nighttime viewing, and he cannot move his eyes like we can. So you'll see him actually move his head in a circle to look around as opposed to moving his eyes around. But you'll also notice that his hearing is very astute. That's why I'm being a little bit quieter. but he can hear the small sound of a mouse scratching a log upwards of a mile's distance away. No smell, though. That's left to other birds of prey. What do you notice about his eyes? That's kind of is a defining feature of a great horned owl. Yes.
They're very big.
Very big. Are they bright? You'll notice he has a yellow ring around his eyes. That iris is unique, that yellow coloration. In fact, the Cherokee have a story about why it has that color. They say that long ago, fire had never been found by animals until one day in a hollow sycamore stump, a great bolt of lightning crashed and left smoking fire. The first time the animals had ever seen such a thing. Unfortunately, it was in an island in a great body of water. And all the animals during this time, according to the Cherokee, could speak to one another. So one day, all the animals came together on the edge of the shore, looking out towards the island, and they had a great council meeting to decide how to bring this warm, bright fire back. And each animal came up with a way to go out and get it. Only one succeeded. So the great horned owl was not one of those that succeeded. So according to the Cherokee, the first to go was the raven, light white at the time, flew out with the brilliant white wings to try and go above and catch the fire in its great wings. But once it got in the smoke and the soot, it burned him as black as night. Then the great horned owl said, "You're doing it wrong, let me try." And whoosh, he takes off with all his might, and his great talons, he would bring it back. He lands on the stump where the smoke rose and decided he was going to reach down and grab it. But as he moved his head over the smoke, it was so hot, a sudden gust burnt a ring of fire around his eyes. And to this day, this still is seen in every great horned owl. One of the many legends of the owls that have the yellow ring. But no matter what you believe, it is a striking symbol of the great horned owl. And the screech owls, if you ever see them on a much smaller scale, also have this iris that has a little bit of a lighter color. But there's even other owls that have oranger irises, and some that don't even have an iris, like the barred owl. If you look at them, it's like a black bead looking at you. Some native tribes even believe that the owls were a messenger of omens, and that to look in the eyes of an owl was to bring bad fortune. So never would you catch those of that upbringing looking directly at an owl. Back in the old park, we actually had some people nearby from a Choctaw tribe come up, and they are one of those that believe that is a curse. And we were doing a presentation, and their kids wanted to see them, but the parents the entire time averted their gaze from the owl, but would look at our hawk and vulture that we had on site. Very interesting. And they told us this story. All right, guys. So thankfully, we have this guy today who is, due to his blindness, I'll tell you the rest of his story now. If you remember, when he was found from earlier, he could not see as well. His wings healed, but what happened to his eyes? Obviously, he's looking right at me. Well, he, after being healed at the vet, was sent to a rehabilitator in West Tennessee. In fact, that rehabilitator just so happened to be a park ranger in David Crockett State Park out in Lawrenceburg, Tennessee. This ranger took care of this owl every day by having to cuddle it in a little ball, put it on a blanket, and feed it by tweezer every day because he had no sight. Well, over the years, he started to notice as he took care of this owl 3 whole years in his care that day by day, it seemed like more and more he could see the thing coming towards him. And eventually, what looked like a shattered window of both eyes, the blood vessels, his left eye completely healed, and he regained sight completely in that eye. But his right eye, still partially blind, I'm going to just ease around nice and gently and let you get a close look at his eyes. Pay attention to his right eye, and you'll see what I mean by the look of a shattered window. Blood vessels still seen that will not dissipate. See the cracks in the... See how his left eye looks good? And then if you look in the right eye, you'll see red streaks. And those are the blood vessels. He's using his blending in abilities. As I'm coming around and showing y'all, does anybody have any questions for Mr. Sunshine about owls or himself?
Do they eat snakes?
They do. Snake is an excellent catch for an owl. They don't have much ability to fight once they've been pierced, and they're a lightweight thing to bring up and to eat food on the go, if you will.
Left side looks good.
Pretty good, doesn't it?
Can't see the right one.
The right eye, you see the shattered.
Do they eat venomous?
Now, you also saw Shiloh and Capone. They are both barred owls. They're a mating pair, male and female.
What's he doing with his throat?
The fluttering, yes, that's the guttural fluttering. Kind of like a dog or a cat, they actually pant to cool down instead of sweat like humans or anything like that. So you'll see all birds of prey pant when it's a little bit warm. He's probably thinking, it's a little warm in here.
Do y'all keep the coop air conditioned?
The coop itself is not, it's actually got several hide boxes to offer him shade, and the aspect is to get him out of the direct sunlight so that he can get the breeze in there as well.
It's beautiful.
Sweet.
He's pretty sweet. So yeah, I was used to close contact. He's new to the more open rooms with crowds, so this is actually maybe also a little bit of stress. Whenever a bird of prey gets very stressed, they'll show signs of wear and tire. You'll see them actually start to let go and try to bait. At that point, we'll put them away. But before we get to that point on them today, I'm going to go ahead and give them a break early. But before so, anybody have any final questions for Sunshine?
Do gray horned owls eat venomous snakes?
They certainly would if they could. A copperhead or a rattlesnake will also be a good food source. They're not very fast compared to some constrictors or ground snakes like the black racer, so they're even easier to catch on flight. But if they were bit, yes, they could be made ill, just like we could if we were bit by a venomous snake. And so there's probably some that have learned to avoid those that have been bit.
What about them taking care of their young? And do they have like 2 eggs at a time? Or
Very good question. Most nests will not have clutches more than 3 eggs. They're a little bit more of a caregiver. They'll find a hollow tree, log, somewhere that is easy to hide and conceal the eggs. And then they will stay with those eggs and actually sit on them just like most birds of prey until they hatch. There are some videos of cameras set up on nests that you can watch great horned owls actually caring for the young and kind of teaching them to fly even. So they do have some extraordinary parental care. And eventually though, when those young start to develop flight, they are quickly ousted. The parents say, no, we're done with you. We don't want to feed you for the rest of our lives. So once their flight develops, they do leave the nest and go solo.
Well, do they do like, you see penguins where the dad, the male takes a big part in it? Do they?
They will together at the first, but usually it is a little bit more common the female will stay behind a guard. Now in the bird of prey world, the females are larger than the males. And in fact, you could see some female owls quite a bit larger than Mr. Sunshine here. Now those bigger bodies have a little bit more power, so usually they're the ones that will stay behind and protect while the male will go out and hunt. They don't come back like a male in the human world would, but on occasion, once they hatch, the male will assist in the hunting and feeding of the owl as well. All right. Yes, ma'am.
Is there much difference in the way that a great
Oh, sorry, you missed our owl language class. But yes, theirs is the deeper, who's awake me too. Whereas the bar owl has the calls that you hear echo in the night.
Oh, okay.
A higher pitch,
You done did the hoo-hoo?
and he has the who cooks for you, who cooks for ya.
Yeah, okay. I just wondering, I'm trying to identify one that's in my neighborhood.
All right. For the time being, I'm going to go ahead and put him in his crate. Everybody say goodbye, sunshine.
Goodbye.